It is 14 minutes away from 2 o'clock. Brendan Telfer with you through till 4 o'clock today. Well, 3 days into the Paris Olympics and we still haven't won a medal. Meanwhile, across the Tasman, and this hurts, doesn't it? Our bros, the Aussies, are joint leaders in the medal table along with Japan, each country having won 4 gold medals. Japan has won an extra silver, I think, from memory. But they are ahead of the United States and France, each who've won 3 gold medals so far from the first 3 days. Interestingly enough, just looking at the medal table, there is 30 countries have already won medals at the Olympic Games, and we've only been going for 3 days. You'll be, I'm sure, delighted to know that Mongolia is in 16th place on the medal table, and Kosovo also in a share of 16th place, both having won a silver medal each by the look of it. Fiji, they're on the medal table, also with 1 medal, along with countries like Poland, and Sweden and Egypt, but no sign of New Zealand yet. With me now from Paris, inside the New Zealand Olympic Committee team, is New Zealand sports journalist Joseph Romanos, covering the Olympic Games for the New Zealand Olympic Committee's website. Joseph, a very good evening to you. I imagine very late at night, if not early in the morning over there in Paris. Thank you for talking to us. I know you're still writing, so we'll try not to keep you too long. It's hardly been, has it, a barnstorming start by the New Zealand team?
Oh, no, you did right. I mean, they certainly expected the men's sevens to come back with something, and you would have thought perhaps Clareburt or Fairweather would have, I mean, it's tough competition, Brendan, it's very tough, but you'd have thought they might have scrambled a medal in the pool. And in some events we swam, we competed well, but we're getting 7th, 8th, 9th, and it's quite honourable, but it's not a medal, and people get very much more excited about medals.
What are you seeing or detecting from within the New Zealand team then in the National or the New Zealand Olympic Committee about what they've seen so far from these first 3 days? Because there still is the best part of 2 weeks to go.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you went through it, like they expect the women's sevens team to get a medal, and after today you'd think that's true. And they expect the cyclists to do very well, and the canoeists. And the rowers have looked better than everyone expected here, much better. They've looked quite dominating in the heats. So they're probably looking at, a good handful of medals, all right, a dozen or 15 or something in the end, but not quite the flood that they had in Tokyo, and probably not as many gold medals either. It's a tough world, international sport, Brendan, and even though you've got some good competitors at home there, New Zealanders, the rest of the world has not has not stopped and waited for them.
Well, we see this, I'm afraid to say, Joseph, don't we? Every time the Olympics come along, or Olympic year comes along, and New Zealand athletes in various sports do well in the early part of Olympic year, and suddenly people like you and me and the rest of us in the media are writing up their chances of winning medals, winning gold medals, and this has happened to the likes of Clareburt and Fairweather this year, particularly after Fairweather won the World 400-metre freestyle title last year with a lot of these superstars missing.
Well, Clareburt won 2 world titles. Clareburt won world title and Fairweather won 2 world titles.
But
go on, sorry.
But many of the superstars from those events weren't competing, were they? Because it was the year before the Olympics, or too close to the Olympics.
Exactly. And then if you think back to the world champs, the track and field that was going on earlier in the year, where we did well in the high jump and the 1,500 metres and so on. It's called a World Champs, but let's see what the standard's like at the Olympics compared to that.
From memory also, I can recall when New Zealand teams enjoy success in the first few days or do better than expected, it has a kind of ripple effect on the rest of the team and all of the other sports, that they take a certain sort of kind of motivation from seeing their fellow New Zealanders doing well on an international stage. Or that concept or that idea is missing this year, isn't it? I'm not sure whether you can take much from what they've seen so far.
No, I think that's true. The men's sevens is what's hurt them, I think.
Yeah.
They would have thought they were going to win a medal there, and maybe a gold medal, and bounce off that and get some momentum. And the loss that they had to South Africa, having beaten them the day before, was a bit of a shock, really. And I think that's hurt what you're talking about, the momentum.
I wonder whether, when it comes to the sevens, that there has to be a radical rethinking here by New Zealand Rugby, who, with all due respect, don't treat sevens anywhere near as seriously as the All Blacks and Test match rugby, and I guess that's understandable to a degree. But I think, as you've just intimated a couple of times already, the standard at these Olympics is so high that it's not realistic anymore for New Zealand to expect they can send a team of, I'd have to say, from my point of view, a lot of them were no-names in that seven side. They might be fast, they might be quick, but they're not really major rugby players on the landscape in New Zealand. We can't expect a team made up of players like that to succeed at the Olympics in sevens anymore, can we?
Well, they do say they're specialists, but you know that if you got the very best rugby players and gave them a year in the sevens team, they'd probably produce very well. I feel that people don't understand how big sevens rugby is now that it's in the Olympics. I mean, Canada beat Fiji today in women's rugby. I mean, these countries are embracing sevens rugby because it's in the Olympics, and it's sort of caught New Zealand sleeping a bit, I think.
Exactly. I mean, it comes back to the New Zealand Rugby Union, doesn't it? I mean, they need to say, maybe to some of these players, to our speedsters who are in that 36, 40-strong All Black squad, some of you are going to the Olympic Games and you have to. It will be part of your contract. We want the name of New Zealand Rugby to be held in highest esteem everywhere we play, whether it's 15s or sevens. And I'm not sure whether we're seeing that with sevens anymore. Or our sevens.
Oh, I'm sure you're right. And you know, if you think back to the final years, Gordon Titchens over in Rio trying to pull together a good team and not being allowed access to players.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And we're trying to have it both ways, aren't we? And I think
we are, because we like the glory of the gold medals, but we don't want to. There's not enough sacrifice to get the gold medals willing to be made at the moment.
Anyway, let's just go back a couple of days to that opening ceremony. I'm not sure whether you saw all of it for one reason or another. Probably you were working, fair enough. But I'd have to say, Joseph, without sounding like an apologist for the IOC, heaven forbid, that was by far and away the finest opening ceremony that I've ever seen in my 40 years covering the Olympic Games. What say you?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it was the first one that was different to the one that went before, wasn't it? It was totally different, and really the 20 before that were just building on each other, the same sort of ceremony each time, marching into the stadium, some music and dancing and lights, and away you go. So this was a huge development along from there, wasn't it? And
it embraced all of that flair and innovation and creativity we've come to associate with many aspects of French life. There have been many times, which I can admit now, I suppose, when I've been commentating opening ceremonies and these interminable march pasts, which often go on for 2 or 2.5 hours with 200 countries these days, or 200 teams marching into the stadium, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder who's watching this stuff back in New Zealand. I mean, it is so bland. It is so kind of predictable. You've got the athletes all put in uniforms with their contrived smile when they walk past the VIP box, hour after hour, walking around an athletics track. And I think someone in that French organising committee said, hey, we've got to do something better than this. And the originality of having them going up the Seine River on boats, in itself, I thought was quite remarkable and made for a far more interesting visual spectacle if you were watching it on television from, say, back here. Yeah, there's a lot of flair and innovation. It was a shame that it rained. I mean, the weather's been hot and fantastic, lovely day today and all that, but it was very unlucky that it rained that evening right when the ceremony was on, because they deserved, for all the imagination and effort that went into that, they deserved the best weather they could get. So what was the feeling from within the New Zealand team who were on one of those barges? I don't think all of them were necessarily there. What sort of feedback were you hearing from the athletes about this whole ceremony? Well, they were pretty fascinated with Celine Dion and Lady Gaga, to tell you the truth. They were. I mean, was Celine Dion lip syncing and so on? Well, I think she was. Yeah, apparently. The things that fascinate athletes
it's we're just old, Brendan. It's just a different conversation.